Good afternoon. Depends on where you are.
Bonjour.
And we are here coming down to the end of today's session. We had two breakout rooms, one with the dealing with women building a feminist Pan-African future, and the other building Pan-African connections. There's some thoughts coming out of the session on the Pan-African future. We had two main presenters, Dr. Darlene Miller and the Reverend Dion Boussois. And I was in that session with on the feminists, and I will just give a brief rundown on some of the things that took place in that, some of the things that were shared. Reverend Boussois, who operates out of the United Nations, she spoke in looking at the topic, building a feminist Pan-African future, really harped back to Dr. Alice Walker, who spoke more of a womanist perspective, basically saying that whenever we talked about women, or when they talked about feminism, basically the conversation was about white women trying to have parity with their white counterparts, white male counterparts, and as such that the Black women were left out of that conversation. And so she spoke more about a womanist perspective that embraces Black women's issues and helps Black women to articulate their stories in their language, knowing what their issues are. Now, that was powerful. It's about a fight for liberation, and a fight for liberation that includes everyone. So the womanist perspective embraces all. It's not just about political thing. It embraces all. It's a whole life perspective. So she's suggesting that we need to embrace that womanist perspective to find our own voice. That's for women. She mentioned of the four-part definition. Speaking of the womanist perspective, one being a radical subjectivity, two traditional communalism, three redemptive self-love, and four critical engagement. And all of that bringing together what the womanist perspective reflects from Alice Walker way back at the beginning of the womanist movement. Then Dr. Darlene Miller, speaking out of South Africa, spoke to the same topic on the three headings: decolonizing knowledge, Black Lives Matter, and Pan-Africanist spirituality. And she looked at it from the Khoi women perspective. Khoi women are part of a marginalized group of women in that time and season, in that era. And so those are like the marginalized of the marginalized, if you wish. And thinking from the perspective that because they're so marginalized, their legacies are aborted. They have been left out, so they can't bring anything to the conversation because of how they've been marginalized. And so the necessity of recapturing those legacies so that they bring that learning and those legacies to the table, which can help to decolonize knowledge, because they're coming from a perspective of this is who I am, this is where I'm coming from, and this is what I bring to the table. And it's important that they are recognized for who they are and for what they bring to the table. And so she talks about the loss of legacy impacts their contribution to the conversation. And the Khoi colored women are very much marginalized. She raised the story of one Khoi woman, a young girl who was sold into slavery, was in slavery. She became a, a housekeeper at age 11, but somehow was able to negotiate between Khoi and other groups of people. And even at age 16 was an emissary, was an ambassador between warring or competing tribes and groups of people. And the sense of what she brings to the table. And so it is to raise her story to understand that those stories need to be told so persons can understand where they stand. Very powerful stories about feminism and womanism and women being part of the struggle. And Dr. Angelique Walker also shared from the conference that was held on Saturday, telling her story and the fact, raising the fact that women were there from the very beginning, even though their names sometimes are not called, that they were there and their input and their impact remains significant even up to this particular time. I will leave that there because I think that our time is fast moving. Tell her stories exploring women's engagement before at Manchester and Tanzania and beyond. So I will leave that there. I believe that there should be another sharing of the other breakout group on Pan-African connections. And if that is there, we'll take that now. If not, then we will go straight to the concluding remarks from Frank Chikane and Dr. Angelique Walker-Smith.
Thank you so much, Reverend Lewis. I'll be very brief. The second breakout room, we had two speakers. We had Dr. Maricel from Latin America. She shared her story, especially with her background in the feminist movement and advocating for better rights, especially for marginalized communities, especially for women and girls, and also from her theological perspective as well, speaking on spirituality. We also heard from Collins Shava, who really spoke from a youth perspective. Now, Dr. Maricel spoke about the need to build organizations, to build connections between organizations. It could be corporate, from the corporate level, universities, but also especially a focus has to be made on the youth. And Collins Shava spoke to this need to build connections, be it at a professional level, at a skills level, at an education level, so that stories can be shared, insights can be shared, and that communication can continue, especially in this time where we have social media and so many of the Pan-African voices may not be heard, may be drowned out by the other videos on TikTok and so forth. There is this need to build those connections. Thank you so much. I will now pass over to Reverend Angelique. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Connors, and thank you so much also, Reverend Lewis, for moderating today. And thanks to all of our moderators, also, of course, Mr. Chikane, who also led the conversations around our youth engagement, and then Ms. Letchley, who also came to us and led the women's panel discussion as well. Everything was so rich today. I hope everyone is feeling inspired and substantively engaged. Tomorrow is the big day. Tomorrow is the big day when we take all of the learnings, all of the discoveries, all of the fellowship together, and we make our way forward. There will be a presentation of an outline, a draft of the document relative to the manifesto declaration. There will be time for the closing ceremony where we give tribute to all of the various persons and groups from 1945 and then all of this week in the closing ceremony. There will also be time, most importantly, for your voices again to be engaged in these deliberations. We thank you so much for being with us today. Looking forward to tomorrow where we wrap things up for the launch to go forward, the launch to go forward. Now it is my joy to bring on my co-convener, the Reverend Frank Chikani, for any other words he may want to offer in this moment. We thank you once again.
Yeah, because of time constraints, Angelique, I just wanted to say, I think it's important to mention that we're going to have Fanon Mendes tomorrow and Shayla Jackson Lee there tomorrow. And Professor Hadebe will be facilitating. I think it's important to invite as many people as possible. We'll release some information that will help people to invite other people. We want to end up with everybody tomorrow rather than, just ourselves. And so let's invite as many people as possible. Thank you very much. Otherwise, that should bring us to an end in 17 hours, 00.
Reverend Chikani, thank you. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee has made special time for us. She is our leader for the HR 4 reparatory justice movement in the US. And Dr. Fanon Mendes is from the United Nations, who have much to offer from the UN decade. So thank you, Reverend Chikani, for those comments. We see all of you tomorrow. And as he has said, please bring everyone with you.
Thank you.